Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Rose Jacobs and you're watching Kalkine TV live from Sydney. This is the last day of the show, the last trade. We're almost nearing the weekend and some say there's no better way to wind down the day than with the latest market close commentary. So let's get started. The ASX 200 wobbled but was up 0.3% in afternoon, with the banks and mining sector trading higher. Eventually, the benchmark index ended up 1.7 points today. Over the last 5 days, the index has gained 1.42% and is currently 2.85% off its 52-week high. On the sectoral front, 6 of 11 sectors traded higher. AREIT was the best performing sector, gaining 1.65% and 2.60% over the last 5 days. Let's look at the top gainers and losers for the day. Today's top performer was Perpetual, as its asset management teams delivered strong performance during the first quarter. Investment fund and trustee groups stock rose by nearly 8% today. CIMIC Group and Healius also soared by 6% and 4.6%, owing to significant market updates. Other top performers were Nickel Mines and Monadelphous Group. In the red zone today, Flight Centre Travel Group led the pack, diving 5.4%. It was an overall red day for travel stocks. In fact, Super Retail Group fell 4.6%, followed by the A2 Milk Company that plummeted 3.5% after acknowledging the media reporting concerning a potential class action against the company. Other top laggards today were Codan and Treasury Wine Estates. Let's now shift our focus to the stocks that fetch investors' attention today. CIMIC Group traded up by over 6%. It delivered a 36% drop in net profits to Australian $303 million in the 9 months to September. Australia's biggest construction group, CIMIC, has fully repaid all money owed on supply chain finance programs. Flight Centre Travel Group plummeted by over 5% after an Australian $400 million capital raise through a convertible bond and a concurrent AUD 73 million block trade at a 3% discount to its Wednesday closing price. Its peers like Webjet and Corporate Travel Management also lost ground today. The declines highlight the ongoing uncertainty facing the travel sector despite the easing of COVID-19 restrictions in Sydney and ahead of Melbourne's own exit from lockdown on Friday. While we are discussing travel stocks, pathology tester Healius is eyeing PCR testing for international travellers after revealing it is continuing to see revenues surge due to local coronavirus testing. Besides, the company's revenue for the 3 months to September hit Australian $689.9 million compared to $480.2 million for the same period last year. Perpetual Credit Income Trust has announced an increase in assets under management, driven in part by net inflows. Shares dropped by almost 0.5% today. Moving on, Aristocrat Leisure saw its shares rise by over 5% towards a record closing high in a note of investor support for the $3.9 billion takeover of Playtech that was announced on Monday. The institutional entitlement offer raised approximately 895 million Australian. And now, before we look at other important news makers, it's time for a very short break, but I'll be right back with more trending updates.
Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
where the property market is headed next,
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly,
apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements
with Kalkine TV.
Hello and welcome back. Rose Jacobs live from Kalkine's studio in Sydney. Now let's look at some of the newsmakers from the opening bell. Megaport registered $24.6 million in third quarter revenue, 8% higher than the preceding period. The tech group said that long-term customer commitments had increased to a record level, with 52% of net new ports in the quarter being acquired with committed terms of between 12 and 36 months. However, shares traded in in red today. Woodside Petroleum released its third quarter report for 2021. The energy giant reported a 19% jump in third quarter revenue to $2 billion thanks to surging gas and oil prices. However, it's also disclosed a dramatic cut in the estimated reserves of its Wheatstone LNG project. Revenue from LNG sales in the 3 months through September had jumped 27% from the second quarter. Woodside shares dropped by nearly 2% today. It was an overwhelming day for Crown Resorts. At its AGM, the casino giant saw nearly 31% of proxy vote cast against its remuneration report, delivering a second strike to the company after 34% of votes went against its executive pay packages last year. The board has been almost completely overhauled over the past year following a string of regulatory and reputational scandals, with 10 of the 11 directors at its 2020 AGM having departed. Crown shares traded in the red today. Shares of BrainChip Holdings, which promises to produce computer chips that mimic the workings of the human brain, jumped more than 15% after it announced a new US patent. The company is taking orders for 2 development kits for its Akada product, a significant step to commercialisation of its technology. One of the nation's largest oil and gas producers, Santos, revealed that it has hit a record-breaking US dollar high of $1.14 billion in quarterly sales revenue. The reason seems to be the worsening global energy crunch that sends commodity prices soaring. Santos shares traded in red today. Well, now that we know what's happening back home, let's move into our next segment and understand the Asian and global market performance. Asian stocks were a tad higher today as investors weighed corporate earnings, elevated inflation and risks from China's property sector. Stocks dipped in Japan and fluctuated in China and Hong Kong. Japanese shares fell today as the Nasdaq's weak overnight finish hurt risk appetite, prompting investors to sell heavyweight technology stocks, but expectations for strong earnings results from domestic firms limited losses. The Nikkei share average was down 0.30%. Shares in Chinese property giant China Evergrande tumbled more than 10% at the open. Key Indian indices were in the green at open, but soon turned flat amid mixed global cues. Finally, let's have a quick look at the buzzing crypto market performance. Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency by market value, has rallied to a record, topping US 66,000 for the first time. The surge has come as more businesses, professional investors, and even the government of El Salvador buy into Bitcoin. Having said that, the main catalyst seems to be the optimism for greater mainstream acceptance in the wake of the successful launch of the inaugural exchange-traded fund for US investors. Big moves tied to significant chart levels have been a common phenomenon in the little more than a decade history of cryptocurrency trading. Investors are getting more interested in Bitcoin because they're always looking for assets whose prices move independently of everything else in their portfolios. Well, that's all for now at the end of day trades, but stay tuned to Kalkine TV as we have many more shows lined up for you for sharing live updates across the economy, markets and sectors. I'm Rose Jacobs signing off.